The story flashes back to a simpler time, to an elementary school during career day presentations, a stark contrast to Guy Becksun's present life. From outside the classroom window, we hear the teacher commending a student's presentation, then announcing that it's Minsik's turn next, who eagerly responds. Minsik confidently declares his ambition to become the president when he grows up, which draws amused reactions and questions from his curious classmates. The teacher, a middle-aged man with glasses, playfully tells Minsik to remember to raise his teacher's salary once he becomes president, then tells him to take a seat. The teacher's hand points to a student roster, where Guy Becksun is clearly visible, indicating it's her turn to present next. The teacher calls upon a young Guy Becksun, Luke No, to present, and she nervously acknowledges her turn, beginning to stand up from her desk. A close-up shows a young Guy Becksun, Luke No, with a slight blush and a hesitant expression, muttering, as she prepares to speak. Overcoming her nervousness, Guy Becksun, Luke No, proudly announces her dream, to grow up and become a wonderful adult from Class 2 to 5, number 10. Guy Becksun, Luke No, continues to share her simple dreams of working hard like her parents and eating all the delicious food she wants. The nostalgic flashback shatters as the scene abruptly shifts back to present, revealing the adult Guy Becksun, Truong Tan, in a furious gaming session, screaming HFUCK. I died again. My team is brain dead. In utter exasperation after another defeat. The stark reality of her current life is highlighted by a text-only panel stating, she ended up becoming completely unemployed, a poignant contrast to the bright dreams of her childhood, foreshadowing the next chaotic moments. Following her gaming tantrum, a hand, presumably Guy Becksun's, attempts to wipe away a dark, ominous stain, perhaps a spilled drink or a metaphorical representation of her chaotic life, muttering "ha" in resignation. Still fuming after her game loss, Guy Becksun dramatically expresses her frustration, questioning why her team only consists of shit players and sarcastically suggesting that the country should deport anyone bad at games. A close-up of Guy Becksun's bare feet next to several overflowing trash bags strewn across the floor vividly illustrates the messy, neglected state of her living environment. Guy Becksun is seen lying listlessly on her bed, scrolling through her phone and wondering aloud, is there anything fun to do? Indicative of her profound boredom and aimless existence. The narration re-emphasizes her identity, stating, this woman's name is Jiwai Baeksun, as she continues to lie on her bed, illuminated by the glow of her phone, seemingly lost in thought. A self-deprecating thought bubbles up, asking, what's this, a horror story about garbage in a studio apartment? Highlighting her awareness of her own squalid living conditions. Guy Becksun reacts with feigned disgust to something she sees, likely online, exclaiming, wow, that's disgusting. How can someone live like that? An ironic comment, given her own circumstances. A wider shot reveals the true extent of her cluttered apartment, filled with trash and discarded items, as she self-mockingly remarks, it's not a human home. It's just a pigsty. Ha ha. Accepting her messy reality. Guy Becksun is shown deep in sleep on her bed, drooling slightly, with the text "sleep well" overlaying image, emphasizing her prolonged hours of rest. Awake now, Guy Becksun is back at her computer, immersed in a game, surrounded by empty instant noodle cups and cans. She sarcastically comments on her own uselessness and the ease of playing games. After her gaming session, Guy Becksun lazily remains on her bed, passing the time by incessantly watching YouTube nonstop, on her phone, another characteristic of her aimless, unemployed existence. Lost in the endless stream of online content, Guy Becksun erupts in loud laughter, exclaiming, "Ah ha ha, fucking funny ha ha ha," finding solitary amusement before the realization of hunger dawns upon her. Amidst the clutter of her room, Guy Becksun realizes she's hungry, noting that she hasn't eaten anything all day, her expression a mix of lethargy and mild concern. Guy Becksun contemplates her next move, wondering if she should make something to eat, her thoughtful expression highlighting the effort even this simple decision requires. Her bare feet shuffle across the floor, suggesting a reluctant movement towards the kitchen, hinting at the impending discovery of her neglected chores. Guy Becksun stands in the doorway, her eyes wide with mix of surprise and a familiar sense of dread as she takes in the scene before her. Her gaze falls upon the sink, overflowing with a towering pile of dirty dishes, a testament to her prolonged avoidance of household chores, as she laments, "I haven't done the dishes." Considering the daunting task of dishwashing, Guy Beck's-son ponders her dilemma, concluding with a resigned expression that, in that case, there's one solution. Her chosen solution is revealed. A packet of instant noodles, the ultimate convenience food to bypass the need for cooking and, more importantly, washing dishes. Guy Beck's-son is shown back at her computer, slurping down the instant noodles directly from the packet, her focus split between her meal and her screen, surrounded by more evidence of her sedentary lifestyle. Having devoured her meal, Guy Beck's-son expresses her satisfaction, saying, I ate everything," as she pushes away the now empty noodle packet. For her dessert, Guy Beck's-son picks up a cup of cold mixed coffee, ready to gulp it down after her instant noodle meal. Guy Beck's-son sips her now perfectly cooled mixed coffee, a strategic choice that she has come to master, mentally noting to pre-boil more instant noodles for future meals. This simple, convenient routine fuels her day, keeping her ready for whatever comes next. As she sets the empty coffee cup aside, her quick, no-fuss meal is complete, leaving her feeling satisfied and energized, ready to dive back into her chosen world of digital adventures. After finishing her quick meal, Guy Beck's-son lets out a satisfied burp, signifying her stomach is now comfortably full. Feeling revitalized, Guy Beck's-son declares it's time for a ranked game, eagerly preparing to dive back into her virtual world. Confident after her meal, her hands move with practiced speed and precision, clicking the mouse and typing on the keyboard, showcasing her intense focus and skill as a gamer. The in-game screen shows her character stealthily crawling through a wooded environment, as Guy Beck's-son realizes she's down to the final 2 players. Guy Beck's-son is intensely focused, her face contorted in concentration as she plays, yelling out about her opponent's funeral highlight reel. Fully immersed in the battle, suddenly, Guy Beck's-son's intense focus is broken as she hears a strange, indistinct noise, her expression shifting to one of confusion and questioning. Her attention is pulled away from the screen as red sound waves and hearts indicate the bizarre and distracting noises emanating from her neighbor's apartment, unsettling her during the crucial game. Guy Beck's-son's face contorts in alarm as the strange noises intensify, making it impossible for her to hear anything else, including her game, forcing her to acknowledge the loud distraction. A wave of horror washes over Guy Beck's-son as she realizes she's not wearing her headset because it hurts her ears, making her vulnerable to the neighbor's strange noises and questioning if she should put on now. Despite the growing distraction, Guy Beck's-son defiantly decides against putting on her headset, resolving to just play as it is and continue her game amidst the bizarre sounds. The game reached its critical point with only Guy Beck's-son and one other player left, an intense situation further amplified by the bizarre noises from her neighbor, escalating her stress to an almost unbearable level. Agitated by the mounting pressure from both the game and the incessant, strange sounds, Guy Beck's-son involuntarily raises her arms and tugs at her hair, her face a mass of escalating frustration and mental strain, on the verge of an outburst. In a sudden burst of frustration, Guy Beck's-son slams her hand onto the desk next to her keyboard, letting out a sharp, angry scream. "AH!" The impact causes blood to splatter violently from her hand, staining the desk and the wall, a vivid consequence of her explosive outburst. Guy Beck's-son stares in horror at the bloody mess she created on her desk, her face reflecting shock and immediate regret over her rash action. Frantically, she tries to wipe the bloodstain off the wall with a tissue, muttering AWN, lamenting, "Why won't this come OFF?" as the red mark stubbornly remains. A wave of anxiety washes over Guy Beck's-son as she worries about the permanent stain, fearing she might have to buy a new wall and dreading her mother's reaction if she were to find out, exclaiming, "If my mom finds out, it'll definitely be separating the wheat from the chaff." In a desperate and bizarre attempt to remove the blood, Guy Beck's-son presses her back and arm against the wall, grunting with effort as she tries to rub the stain away with her entire body. A close-up shot of the wall confirms her efforts are in vain. The bloodstains remain stubbornly visible, hinting at the futility of her frantic cleaning. Guy Becksun's face is a contorted mask of frustration and desperation as she continues her strange struggle against the bloodstain, still pressing her body against the wall. Her desperate attempt evolves into a frenzied dance as she pushes off the floor with her feet, slamming her body against the wall in a peculiar outburst of pent-up anger and stress. With her hands pressed against the wall and her feet pushing her body in rhythmic impacts, Guy Becksun continues to violently slam herself against the surface. Mid-air, Guy Becksun twists and screams, her body arched as she hurls herself against the wall yet again, a desperate and primal physical release of her mounting frustration, bellowing BWANNG. Guy Becksun briefly hangs in the air, her body recoiling from the impact as she screams rhetorical questions at the wall. How does it feel to be on the receiving end? And feels like going crazy, right? Can't get your ACT together? In a bizarre, cathartic meltdown, culminated her intense emotional release. After a frenzied outburst, Guy Becksun slowly descends from her position against the wall, appearing somewhat relieved and stating, "Ha, that was quite refreshing," before questioning, "Should I go down now?" indicating the end of her bizarre coping mechanism. The morning sun shines down an alleyway, illuminating a delivery truck with its back open, filled with packages. The truck is parked in front of an old brick building with a shop sign in Korean. A delivery man, looking tired but determined, carefully carries a large white box up a flight of worn stairs inside a building. He wears a cap and a vest over a long-sleeved shirt. With a soft thud, the delivery man gently places the box down in front of a door. His hands, clad in work gloves, are still supporting the package. A close-up shot shows a hand, stained with what appears to be dirt or grime, knocking twice on door number 303. Small stickers are plastered near the doorbell button. The delivery man pulls off his work glove with a sigh, looking frustrated. He mutters to himself, wondering why there's never anyone home at this apartment. Having left the package at the door, the delivery man walks away down the hallway. The box sits alone outside door 303, while a green bottle is visible further down the corridor. Inside apartment 303, Guy Becksun, 26, unemployed, is pressed against a wardrobe, peeking out nervously. She often pretends not to be home when someone is at the door. Guy Becksun's face is shown in a close-up, her eyes half closed in thought. She listens intently, deducing from the sound of the footsteps that the delivery man must have already gone downstairs. Guy Becksun's hand reaches out from behind the door, tentatively pulling the white delivery box inside her apartment with a soft thud. The white box is now open on a kitchen counter, revealing several meticulously packed side dishes, kept fresh with ice packs. A look at Guy Becksun's phone screen reveals a conversation with her mom. Her mom had sent a message confirming the delivery of side dishes, to which Becksun replied, "Okay, and I got it." Despite her replies, Becksun privately grumbles, "Seriously, Mom, I told you, you don't have to send side dishes," as she looks at the unexpected package. With her curly black hair a bit messy, Guy Becksun then begins to inspect the contents of the box more closely, murmuring to herself, "Let's see. There's a lot here. What is this?" As curiosity piqued, Guy Becksun smiles, delighted to find squid strips in the box of side dishes from her mom. She exclaims that squid strips are awesome. Still sifting through the box, Guy Becksun holds up a wrapped package, feeling its weight. She speculates with a grin that it must be braised beef. Guy Becksun pulls out another container, her eyes wide with mild surprise. It contains stir-fried seaweed stems, a common side dish. Guy Becksun prepares to place a container back into the delivery box, thinking she'll just shove the side dishes into the fridge for now and organize them later. An overhead shot reveals Guy Becksun standing amidst the cluttered and messy kitchen floor, which is strewn with empty bottles, cardboard boxes, and trash bags. Her small apartment is in disarray. Guy Becksun looks toward the fridge with a weary expression, a glass bottle visible in the foreground. Her face shows a mix of annoyance and resignation. The interior of the fridge is a chaotic mess, packed to the brim with various half-eaten items, old containers, and bottles, all appearing rather unappetizing. Guy Becksun looks utterly shocked, her eyes wide and mouth agape, as she stares at her overflowing fridge. She realizes there's absolutely no space for the new side dishes. Guy Beck's-son squats in front of the fridge, pulling out items with a determined but disgusted expression. The floor around her is now even more cluttered with discarded trash and the contents of her fridge. With a grimace, Guy Beck's-son pulls out a large, unidentifiable object from the fridge, clearly disgusted by its appearance and likely its smell. She wonders why there is so much junk. Guy Beck's-son, barefoot and surrounded by garbage, finds herself declaring with determination, "Toss it out," as she confronts the overwhelming mess in her kitchen. This moment marks a turning point as she resolves to clean up her chaotic living space. Amidst the clutter of her kitchen floor, Guy Beck's-son's hand gestures towards a discarded plastic coffee cup and an empty ketchup packet. She sternly commands herself, "Cut the coffee and cut the ketchup." A sudden, forceful resolution to reduce her expenses and change her lifestyle, starting with her daily consumption habits. Guy Beck's-son holds a milk carton and container, declaring that she will cut out homemade cheese and black bean sauce from her diet, indicating her new resolve to save money. Guy Beck's-son peers into her fridge with a look of astonishment, exclaiming, "Wow!" at something she has discovered inside the messy appliance. Guy Beck's-son happily clutches a power bank, her eyes wide and a relieved smile on her face, realizing she's found her long-lost power bank amongst the fridge clutter. A close-up reveals more of the domestic chaos. A mesh bag of onions, a disposable coffee cup, and other bits of trash scattered on the floor, highlighting the extent of her messy living conditions. Guy Beck's-son stands in her kitchen, observing the incredibly cluttered counter. It's overflowing with dirty dishes, takeout containers, plastic bottles, and a full trash bag, making her ponder her next move in the cleaning process. Guy Beck's-son looks thoughtful and slightly annoyed, realizing she needs to use the sink to dispose of all the things she's just pulled out of her fridge. The task ahead seems daunting. A horrifying close-up of the kitchen sink shows it completely jammed with a towering pile of dirty dishes, pots, and cups, all caked with old food and remnants. Guy Beck's-son stands before the sink, hands on her hips, a resigned expression on her face. She begrudgingly acknowledges that she has to do the dishes anyway, and decides to just dump everything into the sink. A graphic close-up of the sink reveals the truly disgusting state of the piled-up dishes, covered in various molds and food waste. Guy Beck's-son cries out, "UACCKK," in disgust. Guy Beck's-son recoils dramatically from the sink, pinching her nose and looking utterly horrified. She exclaims that the smell is so bad, she feels like she could die if she smells it for 5 more minutes. With extreme caution, Guy Beck's-son picks up a small, possibly moldy item with just 2 fingers, expressing her disgust with an uck. This, she affirms, is the very last piece of trash she has to deal with before the cleaning can truly begin. Guy Beck's-son gingerly places a newly cleaned container down, then carefully wraps another item in a plastic bag, making sure to avoid direct contact as she disposes of the final remnants of her kitchen clean-out. The worst, she hopes, is finally over. Guy Beck's-son holds a wrapped container, her face showing a mix of confusion and disgust. She questions what this mysterious, plastic-wrapped item could be. A horrifying close-up reveals the content of the container, a putrid, slimy purple mass. Guy Beck's-son's eyes are wide with disgust, her face contorted in revulsion as she recoils from the sight. Guy Beck's-son struggles to close the container, her hand shaking slightly as she tries to contain the repulsive contents, the sound effect "kong," thump, emphasizing her effort. Overwhelmed by the stench in sight, Guy Beck's-son screams, "KACCK," in pure disgust and verbally curses the foulness she has encountered. In a fit of extreme revulsion, Guy Beck's-son violently throws the container into the sink, exclaiming, "Die! Die, you devil!" as she attempts to rid herself of the vile object. Guy Beck's-son, with dark circles under her eyes, wipes her face with her sleeve. A single tear drops from her nose, highlighting her utter misery and defeat after the disgusting cleaning ordeal. A close-up of the sink reveals a continued mess. Dirty dishes, sprouted onions, and a dark, putrid liquid. The scene emphasizes the unsanitary conditions she's battling. Wearing rubber gloves, Guy Beck's-son stands in front of her now somewhat tidier sink, looking determined. She resolves to cut back on delivery food and evenly consume her mom's side dishes to save money this month. An exterior shot shows Guy Beksun diligently washing dishes by her kitchen window. The sounds of der garage, rattle, rattle, echo from her apartment, indicating her newfound industriousness. Later, Guy Beksun, in her sleepwear, holds a coffee cup and looks startled, realizing how much time has passed. She then complains about being extremely hungry. Inside her now tidier fridge, several containers of side dishes are neatly stored. Guy Beksun ponders what to eat, wondering what would be so delicious that even her neighbor, Dusik, would hear of her excellent meal. Her hand reaches for the side dishes, and with a decisive crunch, Guy Beksun selects the squid strips from the fridge, ready to finally satisfy her hunger. Guy Beksun stands in front of her open fridge, her eyes half closed in a daze. She contemplates that she should drink coffee again after eating, a sign of her late-night habits and reliance on caffeine. A close-up of a neatly wrapped plastic bag in the fridge, filled with food. This highlights the change in her fridge's organization after her earlier cleaning efforts. Guy Beksun sits at her computer desk, eating side dishes with chopsticks while holding her phone. She is having a conversation, asking if the fried seaweed seasoning was right, and then she tells her mom that she thought it was good, even though her mom found it bland. The scene shifts to a quiet evening street, with people returning home after a busy day. This sets the temporal context, suggesting a normal world outside Beksun's reclusive life. Guy Beksun is sprawled on her bed, her phone lying next to her. The caption humorously introduces her as Guy Beksun, 26, unemployed, honorary citizen of New York, highlighting her NED lifestyle. A close-up shows Guy Beksun waking up, her face disoriented and a bit drooly, illustrating her deep sleep and perhaps the disorientation that comes with irregular hours. A shot looking up towards her door and ceiling, capturing the dim light of dawn or dusk, further emphasizing the time of day and the quiet of her apartment. Guy Beksun lets out a wide yawn and stretches her arms high above her head, finally shaking off her sleepiness after what seems to be a very long rest. Guy Beksun checks her phone, looking bleary-eyed and wondering if she slept in a strange position, still feeling incredibly sleepy despite just waking up. Her phone screen reveals the exact time, 6:28 a.m., Saturday the 25th, confirming her very early morning wake-up call after a prolonged sleep. Guy Beksun lies back on her bed, deep in thought about the vastness of the universe, a brief escape from her earthly troubles. As she sits up and checks her phone, Guy Beksun suddenly realizes she slept for a staggering 14 hours, from 4 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., starkly highlighting her irregular, isolated routine. Guy Beksun stares wide-eyed at her phone, a look of utter shock and fear on her face, as she cries out, "Asika Enolo," indicating something terrible has just happened or been seen. In a sudden burst of panic, Guy Beksun flees from whatever she saw on her phone, running frantically through her cluttered apartment. Guy Beksun is now seated at her computer, looking relieved yet still a bit shaken as she murmurs, "I almost messed up," hinting at a near blunder she managed to avoid. A close-up reveals Beksun's game avatar. Clean for me, a muscular, bald character wearing round glasses and a pinwheel hat. The screen announces hot time rewards and that Clean for Me has acquired the pinwheel hat as a reward for reaching LV 500. Guy Beksun gazes at her computer screen with a satisfied and slightly mischievous smile, admiring her avatar's new accessory and commenting, "Look at it spin around. So cute he." The game screen is shown alongside her messy desk. Guy Beksun proudly decides to add her new item to her luxury collection, signifying her attachment to her in-game possessions. With a calm expression, Guy Beksun, dressed in a red jacket, leans back in her gaming chair and announces, "Since I got my reward, let's do some quests," ready to delve deeper into her virtual world. Beksun's game avatar, Clean for Me, is depicted in action, engaged in combat with a monster. Coins are seen dropping, indicating a successful battle or loot. Guy Beksun is shown slumped over a computer keyboard, fast asleep, with her red jacket serving as a makeshift pillow. Her gaming session has clearly extended late into the night. Guy Beksun wakes up, looking calm and content, reflecting on the feeling of building something. This highlights the sense of achievement she finds in her game progress. Guy Beck's-son is engrossed in her game, enthusiastically stating that single-player RPGs never get tiring, unlike shitty multiplayer games. This internal monologue is juxtaposed with a glimpse of an aggressive chat from 010 XXXXXXX below, a subtle hint of the online world she tries to avoid. However, her peaceful gaming is soon interrupted. The game screen reveals Guy Beck's-son's avatar, clean from me, encountering two other players, 97 an elf woman with green hair, and 3 a gray monster-like character. 97 immediately confronts them with a direct HEY, setting the stage for an online dispute. Guy Beck's-son's avatar, clean from me, stand with 3 clinging to its arm as 97 an elf woman confronts them, declaring this area is her spot. A close-up reveals the annoyed expression of 97 who holds a staff and curtly tells Clean for me to get out of the way. The elf woman's face contorts in anger, her eyes glowing red, as she fiercely warns, if you don't get outdashed with intense energy emanating from her, signified by the sound effect, Jang. Back in her room, Guy Beck's-son grins smugly at her screen, typing a taunting reply. Kakik, are you dumb? What spot? She then sarcastically asks, H can't do anything, right? Boo-hoo, revealing her aggressive online persona. 97 threatens Clean for me, declaring, just you wait, you bastard, I'll definitely kill you. Clean for me, nonchalantly retorts, go ahead, I don't want to live long anyway, huh? With 3 looking on. Guy Beck's-son reclines in her gaming chair, typing furiously with a satisfied expression. She finds the online confrontation thrilling, laughing heartily as she engages in exchange. Suddenly, Guy Beck's-son's face contorts in horror and disbelief. Her eyes are wide as she screams, ACK! Holy SHIT, at something unfolding on her screen. A rare monster, the dwarf Moneybag, appears in the game, glowing with gold and described as a rare mob that drops a ton of gold. Beck's-son's avatar, Clean for me, stands in the foreground, facing away from the glowing creature. Guy Beck's-son's face is illuminated by her screen, eyes wide with greedy determination. She realizes that if she catches his dwarf Moneybag and sells his loot, she can easily buy 2 chickens. She muses, well, I guess it's time I got lucky. Beck's-son's avatar, Clean for me, launches a powerful attack, delivering a forceful punch, indicated by the sound effect, bah. Guy Beck's-son stares at her screen, utterly confused and frustrated, her hands hovering above the keyboard. She whispers, HUH? As her avatar misses the rare mob, realizes her chance at gold has slipped away. As Clean for me, stands stunned, 97 and 3 appear, gloating over their theft. The elf woman mockingly asks, Keek, you didn't get it right? Lost 50,000 gold, right? As both players laugh triumphantly at Beck's-son's misfortune, having snatched the valuable dwarf Moneybag. Guy Beck's-son screams in fury, her face contorted in rage, demanding, ACK? Give it back! As she stares at her game screen, enraged by the loss of her loot. The 2 taunting players, 3 and 97 laugh maniacally at Clean for me. The elf woman mockingly adds, even if you kill US, the money is never coming back a keek, further stoking Beck's-son's anger. Guy Beck's-son is utterly devastated and frustrated, slumped over her keyboard. She laments that the lost 50,000 gold is almost her entire fortune, highlighting the financial sting of the in-game loss. 97 continues to provoke Beck's-son, asking if she has her webcam on because she can practically see her distorted face keek. 3 joins in, remarking, looks like you're our distorted villain. Kakik, escalating the verbal assault. The taunting from the other players intensifies. 97 YRL during the Mbyoke states. Kakik, no matter how much you kill, you won't get back what you lost, right? And 3 RDDR well UGHDR WRKR. Ads, acting like you don't care but your probs so mad Kakik, aiming to further infuriate Beksun. The verbal abuse continues as 97 YRL during the Mbyoke makes a crude comment. LMAO, you really are contributing to global warming, HUH? While 3 RDDR well EDHDR WRKR adds a humiliating insult. FR, if you cracked an egg on that head, it'd fry in 10 seconds. Haha. 97 YRL during the Mbyoke and 3 RDDR while EDHDR WRKR are shown continuing their relentless mockery and laughter at Clean for me, who stands facing away, seemingly defeated by their onslaught. The verbal assault reaches a new low as 97 YRL during the Mbyoke makes another vulgar comment about Clean for me being a human kettle. 3 RDDR sarcastically announces a fake global catastrophe. Breaking news. 5 seconds till Earth's destruction. The sun's off its orbit and approaching, ha ha ha, all meant to mock Beksun's character. Beksun's avatar, Clean for me, appears with crossed arms, feigning indifference, stating, "Haha, I don't really care, THO." He then announces his departure, claiming, "I have 2 apartments, gotta geo-manage my tenants, so I'm out, haha." It was fun later, as he prepares to log off, and in the confrontation on his terms. 3 RDDR well EDHDR WRKR fires back at Clean for me's exit, saying, "2 apartments, yeah right. If you run 2 games, you'll get banned. Just turn off your Monopoly game, keek. Simultaneously, a hand clicks, Jung, end, on the game screen, confirming Beksun's log-off. Guy Beksun sits in her chair, a smug and victorious expression on her face. She thinks triumphantly, "You guys still mad enough to keep typing HUH?" As she delivers her final, dismissive internal thought, such low lives believing she has utterly won the verbal sparring. Guy Beksun is now lying on the floor next to her chair, her bare feet visible. Reflecting on the childish behavior of the other players, she scoffs. So childish, haha, convinced of her clever victory, and prepares to end her night on this high note. Guy Beksun slumps back in her gaming chair, looking weary but defiant. She sarcastically thinks to herself, "It's an adult game, aren't you embarrassed at your age?" directing her scorn at the other players. Pulling a blanket up to her chin, Guy Beksun dismisses the situation as so childish, and claims she's going to sleep early today to fix my schedule. She concludes, feeling victorious, total win for me, haha. Lying in bed, Guy Beksun still seethed with anger, clenching her fist under the covers. Her internal monologue rages, "These bastards think they've won." Her computer screen glows with the game's login page, showing an empty username and password field, implying she logged out, but the game client is still open. A close-up of a text editor on Guy Beksun's computer shows a lengthy Korean message, with an English overlay confirming her action. "Prepare for attack, Control+C." She is copying a meticulously crafted insult. The screen shifts, now displaying the game chat window. The English overlay attack, Control+V, confirms she has pasted the toxic message, unleashing a torrent of abuse upon her adversaries. With her arms triumphantly raised in a satisfied expression, Guy Beksun basks in her perceived victory, exclaiming, "Yes, I won," having delivered her final blow in the online battle. Guy Beksun lies in bed, a serene smile gracing her lips. She revels in a feeling of satisfaction, thinking, that feels refreshing, this is life, and claims 10 years' worth of stress just melted away. She looks forward to a perfect sleep. Guy Beksun's face is shown in a close-up, her eyes wide with shock and mouth agape, as if she has just received devastating news, dramatically contrasting with her previous contentment. Her computer screen displays a stark, white pop-up notification. 7-day suspension, reason, profanity/unsportsmanlike behavior. And, okay, button waits for her acknowledgement of the punishment. Guy Beksun kneels on the floor before her computer, her back to the viewer. She remains motionless, bathed in the cold glow of the suspension notice, her world seemingly having come to a crushing halt. Guy Baek-sun, a 26-year-old unemployed woman, sits idly on her bed, scrolling through her phone. Her messy room reflects her NED lifestyle, hinting at the financial struggles to come. While trying to order food, Baek-sun notices the hefty delivery fee for her fried chicken combo, adding to her financial woes. Suddenly, Guy Baek-sun's eyes widen as she sees something alarming on her phone, muttering, what's this?" in surprise. Her phone screen reveals a grim truth. Only 20,051 won left in her bank account, confirming her worst fears about her dwindling funds. Distraught, Baek-sun stares at her phone, realizing she has only 1 week until allowance day. "How am I supposed to survive with this?" she laments, panic setting in. In a vivid display of her despair, a chicken mascot lies dead in the top panel, symbolizing Baek-sun's craving for chicken she can't afford, or perhaps her lost income as a band gold farmer. Below, Baek-sun clenches her fists, a dark aura surrounding her, expressing her deep frustration and anger at her financial predicament. A glimmer of hope appears as Baek-sun considers a last resort. "Maybe if I just ask Mom for a little more allowance." Hesitantly, Baek-sun calls her mother, her expression a mix of embarrassment and apprehension. She stammers, "Yeah, Mom, the thing is, I'm out of money." Her mother's furious voice echoes through the phone. You! How long has it been since I gave you money? And you've already spent it all." Baek-sun recoils in horror, while her mother's scathing words continue. "At your age, if you don't earn, you should at least save." Baek-sun lies on the floor, still holding her phone, the weight of her mother's relentless scolding crushing her spirit. After the intense phone call, Baek-sun sits up, thoughtfully chewing on her finger, pondering. What can I even cut back on? The scolding forces her to seriously consider her spending habits. Lying back on her bed, Baek-sun continues to brainstorm ways to save money, her mind racing with possibilities as she mutters, 1 week to go. What can I save on?" A determined glint in her, I suggest an idea, however small, is beginning to form. In the dim light of her room, Guy Baek-sun is engrossed in her computer screen, mindlessly munching on a sub sandwich and sipping a drink. This scene captures her typical NED lifestyle, immersed in her virtual world. From behind, we see Baek-sun hunched over her computer, a video playing on the YouTube interface, while a subtle ding sound effect indicate a notification or a sound from the video. A look of sudden realization, or perhaps shock, crosses Baek-sun's face as she stares at her phone, exclaiming, YouTube Premium. This is the moment her genius idea to save money is born. With determined expression, Guy Baek-sun abruptly sits up on her bed, clutching her phone. The sound effect, Potok, Biotiak, emphasizes her sudden motivated action. Baek-sun's phone displays the YouTube Premium cancellation page with a large red button urging her to cancel immediately. She's moments away from taking action on her newfound financial strategy. A triumphant, almost smug expression lights up Baek-sun's face as she sits on her bed, feet playfully wiggling. "Am I actually a genius?" she muses, reveling in her cleverness for finding a way to save money. The scene shifts abruptly to a dark, gritty alleyway at night, populated by 2 wary cats and overflowing trash bags. A forlorn UWA sound effect overlays the stark image, perhaps symbolizing Baek-sun's underlying despair or the harsh realities of her situation. Baek-sun is back at her computer, looking weary and dispirited, mindlessly clicking her mouse. A cup of instant ramen, and it can sit beside her, reflecting her continued reliance on cheap, solitary meals. An exaggerated, almost caricatured image of a blonde-haired man holding a spiked club appears, accompanied by musical notes and the words, "This is tough love. I'll show you just how much I love you." This likely represents Baek-sun's internal, humorous visualization of her mother's stern scolding. Lying on her back, Baek-sun lets out a nervous or embarrassed haha as musical notes float around her, suggesting she's trying to laugh off the internal pressure from her mother's tough love. A close-up of Baek-sun's worried and confused face, framed by a question mark, conveys her ongoing struggle to come to terms with her financial situation, still grappling with what to do after the scolding and her small victory of canceling YouTube Premium. Suddenly, two determined LV.10 police officers in sunglasses make a dramatic, game-like appearance while Baeksun questions, what's that sound? YouTube. This abrupt, exaggerated vision, almost like a game breaking, highlights her underlying anxiety about her financial problems and the symbolic consequences of her spending habits. In the dimly lit glow of her monitor, Guy Baeksun leans into her screen, her face etched with worry and a hint of desperation. Her hands hover over the keyboard as if anticipating a critical moment, reflecting her deep immersion in her digital world and the underlying tension of her financial plight. Baeksun's thoughts are visualized in a game-like sequence, a mundane chest, an energetic LV.1 crook flexing in a fighting stance, and a suave LV.30 boss in a suit and shades. These figures represent her internal struggle with making money and navigating the levels of financial challenge after her gold farming career ended. Overwhelmed by her internal monologue, Guy Baeksun cries out in frustration from her gaming chair, her eyes wide with a mix of anger and confusion as the purple and blue light from her screen casts an unsettling glow. Baeksun's voice recounts a past event. So, I went there last time, right? As her phone displays two small figures, possibly from video or a game, illustrating a memory or thought connected to her ongoing internal narrative. Attempting to be more responsible, Baeksun stands at her messy kitchen sink, dutifully washing dishes in pink gloves. Despite the chore, a subtle smirk and a he escape her lips, accompanied by a comment. Hey, come on, you can't do it like that. Possibly directed at herself or a video she's watching. Her momentary calm is interrupted by a close-up of her phone screen, showing a frustrated figure and the text, add display after 2 seconds. Baeksun laments, what if I did that, you know? Then it will, hinting at the unwanted consequences of her actions. Suddenly, an intrusive advertisement featuring 3 women in traditional Korean attire, complete with heart icons and options to marry or hit/strike, flashes on her screen. Baeksun reacts with a loud, oh hoot, as she realizes AGS coming out at every chance. The annoying reality of canceling YouTube Premium. Baeksun is visibly frustrated, her mouth open in a silent scream of annoyance as the incessant ads continue to plague her viewing experience. The Yuwang sound effect perfectly captures her exasperation. Lying despondently on her bed, Baeksun sighs. Sigh, can't even play games cause of the ban. Resigned, she decides, might as well watch some movie reviews with spoilers, showcasing her limited entertainment options as a NET. Baeksun continues to lie on her bed, lost in thought, her finger pressed to her mouth. The dim lighting accentuates her melancholic and contemplative mood as she grapples with her current predicament. Just as Baeksun had resigned herself to watching movie reviews, another disruptive advertisement, this time featuring a muscular boxer, rudely interrupts her content. She throws her hands up in exasperation, yelling, OH, FUCK, come on, another AD? The endless stream of ads after canceling Premium is quickly becoming unbearable. With a sigh of utter resignation, Baeksun slowly sits up, a faint, sardonic smile touching her lips. She has succumbed to the inevitable, muttering with a dry chuckle, HA, all right, let's see what AD pops up this time. Ha ha. The fight is over. She's ready to embrace whatever new annoyance YouTube throws her way, a subtle shift in attitude that might lead her to unexpected places. A close-up of a mobile game ad, depicting a puzzle where a hand suggests dropping a monster first, then unlocking a key to get treasure. Baeksun, likely watching this ad, finds herself drawn into its simplistic challenge. Guy Baeksun lies down, a smug and confident smile playing on her lips, as she comments, Hee, super easy, right? Her gaming expertise makes her confident in solving the puzzle from the ad. Her confidence is shattered as the puzzle game ad delivers a cruel twist. The monster has defeated the hero, and a banner declares, You have died. This puzzle is impossible to solve. The sound effect, gone, Quang, marks her failure. Baeksun's face contorts in pure shock and dismay, her eyes wide and jaw dropped. Her exaggerated reaction highlights her disbelief at being outsmarted by a misleading game ad. Intrigued despite herself, Baeksun sits up, covered by a blanket, and wonders, wait, what's this game called? Oh, here it comes. She admits, the ad's annoying, but now I'm curious about the puzzle game. Should I download it? Succumbing to her gamer instincts. After downloading the game, Beck's son is met with another deception, a different type of RPG, not the puzzle game advertised. Warriors and mages battle monsters with floating damage numbers, and a bold text declares, "This isn't a puzzle game," adding to her frustration. Lying back down, Beck's son appears annoyed and apathetic, her phone resting on her chest, casting a blue glow on her hair. The sound effects, gumjarak gumjarak, komjalak komjalak, suggest her fidgeting boredom as she contemplates her next move. On her phone, a YouTube Premium welcome message appears, confirming her resubscription. The details show a 10,000 Korean wons per month individual membership. Beck's son rationalizes her decision, muttering, "I'll just pretend I skipped 2 coffees. An old big deal, right?" Trying to justify her renewed spending. Beck's son grins maniacally in her bed, phone in hand, bathed in its blue light. "Now no more ADS, right?" she exclaims, a self-aware, almost mischievous, surrendered to capitalism, hee-hee, escaping her lips as she embraces a convenience she craves. A moment later, Beck's son, still lying down, considers new cravings. Would love some cookies and coffee while watching this. Old habits die hard as she ponders. Maybe I'll skip coffee tomorrow and buy some instead, struggling to maintain any financial discipline. After her brief financial and gaming misadventures, Beck's son retreats to her familiar routine, sitting on the floor amidst clutter of her room, eating instant ramen. The HOOHO sound effect accompany her solitary, simple meal, a stark reminder of her needy lifestyle and ongoing struggles. As she continues to eat her ramen, Beck's son watches content on her computer screen. A video host's voice concludes, "All right, that wraps up today's content. See you next time, bye," bringing her current viewing session to an end and setting the stage for her next quiet moments of consumption. Beck's son watches a video on her computer screen, which displays a question mark thumbnail and the Korean text for "Play Now." Blurred sound effects suggest a rumbling or gulping sound, adding to the atmosphere of her solitary video consumption. Beck's son slurps ramen with her chopsticks, her eyes half closed and tongue slightly out, letting out a soft meow. Her vacant expression suggests she's deeply immersed in the content she's watching, or perhaps just zoning out. The source of her meow is revealed, a cute white cat playfully batting at a feathered toy in the video. Beck's son reacts with a disdainful UGH, "It's a cat video," indicating her lack of enthusiasm for the content. Confused, Beck's son questions, "Wait, I've never searched for cat videos. Why is this showing up?" She then rationalizes, "OH, maybe because I watch funny animal compilations," as she struggles to understand YouTube's algorithm. Her cynicism surfaces as she watches a cat video. A small white cat pushes an object off a table with a crashing sound. Beck's son sarcastically praises, "AWW, good job," then angrily asserts, "UGH, seriously, I can't stand IT, what's so cute about that?" While slurping her ramen, Beck's son projects her own needy habits onto the cats, criticizing them. They just mess up the house all the time, sleep all day, waste food, and cause trouble. This is a moment of unwitting self-reflection. Beck's son imagines herself in a dramatic mid-air pose, ready to strike, exclaiming, "If something like that was in my house, I'd instantly wham, the chop of death." Her exaggerated fantasy shows her frustration with perceived slovenliness. After her outburst, Beck's son stands barefoot amidst her own cluttered and trash-filled room, making a vague hand gesture. The ellipsis in her thought bubble suggests a moment of contemplation, perhaps realizing the ironic parallel between her criticisms and her own living conditions. Beck's son sits on the floor, eating ramen, feeling the monotony of her diet. With a slumped posture, she sighs, "AH, only eating ramen feels a bit boring," yearning for something more satisfying. Holding her phone with a wistful expression, Beck's son expresses her desire. "A coffee would be perfect right about now." This thought reveals her craving for a small indulgence, even after her recent financial struggles. With determined yet tired expression, Beck's son walks down the street in her gray hoodie and shorts. The text, "The only joy in my life," emphasizes the significance of her journey to get coffee, highlighting its importance in her mundane existence. From an overhead perspective, Beck's son trudges along the street, looking down with a tired UGH as scattered paper bundles lie on the ground. This image captures her venture outside, still burdened by her struggles, but determined to get her coffee. Walking down the street, Beck's son suddenly hears an urgent "you-wang" and turns her head with questioning look, her curiosity piqued by the unexpected noise. The source of the commotion is revealed. Two cats are locked in a fierce street brawl, hissing and making loud UWA noises, disrupting the quiet neighborhood. Beck's son looks on an exasperated expression, sighing, "Sigh, those damn cats are fighting again." Her annoyance with feline antics continues, mirroring her earlier sentiments about cat videos. The cat fight intensifies with sharp "kek" as one cat aggressively attacks the other, which is curled up defensively, further solidifying Beck's son's negative perception of cats. Beck's son's distress grows, her face showing clear signs of exasperation and discomfort. Her messy hair and furrowed brow highlight her rising frustration with the noisy cat battle. Taking matters into her own hands, Beck's son actively intervenes, kicking out her leg to shoo the fighting felines away. She yells, "Go away, SHOO," as the two cats scramble to flee her forceful gesture. Feeling victorious, Beck's son makes a playful, cat-like claw gesture, a smug smirk gracing her lips. "Hee, how did that feel?" she teases, adding, "Mess with me in my territory and you're dead, haha," embracing a mischievous persona. Her moment of triumph is cut short as one gray cat remains, looking up at her with an unwavering gaze. Beck's son is taken aback, stammering, "W, what's up with you? Why aren't you leaving?" Her surprise is palpable. A close-up reveals Beck's son's bewildered expression, her eyes wide and slightly fearful under the bright sunlight. The cat's unexpected persistence leaves her feeling uncertain and a little vulnerable. The gray cat, undeterred, looks up at Beck's son, its mouth slightly open as if meowing. This tiny sound further asserts its presence, demanding her attention. The cat boldly approaches and begins to rub against Beck's son's leg, startling her. She reacts with surprise, "W, wait, hold on," as this unexpected affection catches her completely off guard. Despite her protest, the gray cat persists, rubbing against Beck's son's sandal-clad foot with a soft thubby-jug sound. This unwavering display of feline attention, both unexpected and unfamiliar, leaves Beck's son increasingly flustered. Beck's son jumps back in surprise, a blush creeping onto her cheeks as she exclaims, "H?" The unexpected proximity and persistent affection from the cat leaves her flustered and caught off guard. She tentatively reaches down, her hand stroking the gray cat as it continues to rub against her leg with a soft, "thilk, sukuk" sound. This marks a hesitant moment of interaction for the usually cat-averse Beck's son. The cat then surprises Beck's son again by presenting her with a small bone in its mouth, an unexpected gift. Beck's son looks startled, exclaiming "Age" at the peculiar offering. A close-up of Beck's son's face reveals her internal conflict. Her eyes are wide, and a slight blush indicates her troubled thoughts as she processes the cat's unusual behavior, leaving her speechless. Beck's son stands, tapping her foot impatiently, a frustrated HA- escaping her lips. The persistent cat sits calmly by her feet, waiting, as she remains undecided about how to handle the unexpected feline companion. Suddenly, a hand offers Beck's son a plastic bag containing coffee and pastries. She looks up in surprise, gulping from her coffee cup, as this unexpected moment unfolds amidst her contemplation of the cat. Her momentary relief is shattered as Beck's son checks her phone, her eyes wide with shock and despair. AH- balance, 201. Broke again, she exclaims, lamenting. "I asked there anyone more used till being broke than me?" Her impulsive coffee purchase has left her in a familiar financial bind. Clutching her coffee, Beck's son stares at her blank phone screen, her face contorted in a mix of distress and embarrassment. The reality of her empty bank account settles in, leaving her looking utterly distraught. A close-up of her phone shows the dial pad, prompting the agonizing question, "Should I ask for allowance?" The familiar dilemma of financial desperation weighs heavily on her mind. Leaning against the wall, Beck's son glances around nervously, her expression a mix of paranoia and guilt. The thought of another phone call to her mother fills her with reluctance and shame. Amidst her emotional struggle, the gray cat remains a persistent presence, sitting patiently on the ground, its gentle, blinking gaze fixed on Baek-sun. It's a silent vigil, seemingly offering comfort in her moment of turmoil. Succumbing to her desperation, Baek-sun looks down at her phone, her expression tearful and defeated as she clutches her coffee cup. The single word, "Mom," escapes her lips, a reluctant admission of her continued reliance and financial defeat. Baek-sun lets out a scoffing hung and a soft snort, trying to maintain her aloof demeanor despite the cat's persistent attempts to win her over. She still looks annoyed, but a hint of blush suggests her resolve is wavering. The gray cat subtly weaves past Baek-sun's foot, its tail twitching with a burr sound, a silent invitation for continued interaction, as Baek-sun observes its movements. Succumbing to the cat's charm, Baek-sun crouches down, extending a hesitant hand toward the feline. Her expression softens, showing a tentative willingness to engage, while still clutching her beloved coffee. Her hand gently pats the cat's back with soft and "tuk" sounds, as a genuine connection begins to form between Baek-sun and the persistent feline. Baek-sun's inner world sparkles, showing a fantasy vision of two adorable cats playfully rolling on the ground. She thinks, cute, realizing her perception of felines is rapidly changing. A close-up of Baek-sun's wide-eyed, surprised face shows her sudden realization of her own transformation. The light reflecting in her eyes highlights her disbelief at her newfound affection for cats. A vibrant, sparkling pink montage reveals Baek-sun's full fantasy. She's playing with a cat and a feather toy, taking pictures of a cat in a lion costume, and finally, sleeping peacefully with a cat curled on her chest. This complete shift depicts her imagining a life as a devoted cat lover. Reality snaps back as Baek-sun crouches on the street, sipping her coffee with a sound. The cat sits calmly beside her, a silent witness to her internal journey, marking the return from her vivid fantasy. With a newfound tenderness, Baek-sun leans towards the cat, now curled up next to her coffee cup. She softly asks, "H-U-I, kitty? Do you want this?" Preparing to share food, a small but significant act of kindness. Baek-sun holds out a piece of food, a kind and mischievous smile playing on her lips. "I bought it for myself, but I'll give you some. But we have T.O.'s share, so only half, okay?" she tells the cat, making a personal sacrifice. The cat's eyes widen, its entire being focused on the offered food, tail raised in eager anticipation, showcasing its intense hunger and excitement. With a sudden, almost frantic "you whack," the cat leaps toward the food in Baek-sun's hand, its mouth open wide. Its intense eagerness, fueled by hunger, leads to a less than gentle snatch. Baek-sun recoils in shock, her eyes wide with terror as the cat, in its eagerness for food, scratches her leg. "Why are you suddenly freaking out?" she exclaims, her attempt at kindness backfiring unexpectedly. With a cry of "ACK," Baek-sun tumbles backward, her coffee cup and food scattering onto the ground. The cat, momentarily startled, makes its escape, leaving her amidst the spilled mess, trembling slightly. The cat, looking almost monstrous with her spiked and wide eyes, makes a dramatic leap onto a high wall, bathed in sunlight. Its escape is swift and wild, leaving Baek-sun in awe and renewed fear. Disheveled and stunned, Baek-sun sits on the cold street, surrounded by her spilled coffee and food. The cat glances back at her with wide, unblinking eyes, as if observing the chaos it caused, leaving Baek-sun defeated. A close-up captures Baek-sun's utter bewilderment, her mouth agape in disbelief. "I is it crazy?" she questions, trying to comprehend the cat's sudden aggression, followed by confused, "What did I even do?" Her eye reflects a lingering horror, wide and bloodshot, showcasing the lingering trauma and shock from the cat's unexpected and violent turn. The remnants of her coffee and the shared food lie discarded on the ground, a stark reminder of her lost indulgence and the unfortunate turn of events, emphasizing her renewed financial and emotional setbacks. Baek-sun stands, grimacing as she holds up the remaining piece of food. Ugh, but the part with coffee on it is sticky. She complains, her disgust palpable, while an exaggerated claw reaches for her from the side, a humorous representation of her lingering fear of the cat. This leaves Baek-sun in a state of comedic misery as the chapter concludes.